Have you ever wondered why the women who seem to haunt a man's soul the longest are not the ones who gave the most, but the ones who withheld with quiet certainty? There is something dangerously alluring about emotional distance, a gravitational pull that gnaws at the male psyche. Not because she plays games. Not because she is cruel. But because her stillness reflects a reality he can't control, a reality that forces him to wrestle with the depths of his own ego. He doesn't realize it at first. To him, it begins as intrigue. A fascination with her restraint, her effortless detachment, her refusal to pour herself out for the validation of his fleeting attention. In a world that rewards women for overextending, overgiving, and overexplaining, she does the unthinkable, she holds her energy. She remains a mystery not because she tries to be one, but because she exists in a state of self-possession that most men have never encountered. This is not the silence of passivity. It is the silence of a woman who knows herself. The silence of a woman who has faced her shadows and decided she will not hand her power to anyone unwilling to meet her there. Carl Jung wrote of the anima and animus, the feminine and masculine archetypes within each soul. When a man encounters a woman who embodies her deep feminine, he is unknowingly confronting the anima within himself. But rather than integrating it, his conditioned ego seeks to possess it, to dominate it, to reduce it into something comprehensible. And when she refuses, when she stays slightly out of reach, she becomes not a person but a mirror to his own incompleteness. He may try harder, sending messages, escalating gestures, testing her boundaries, not realizing that his pursuit has little to do with her and everything to do with his desire to conquer what feels uncontrollable. But each unanswered call, each subtle withdrawal, each quiet moment in which she does not rush to soothe his discomfort pushes him closer to a truth he has spent a lifetime avoiding. No woman can save him from the parts of himself he refuses to face. You've seen it, haven't you? The man who grows restless when she doesn't reply, the one who once seemed so sure of himself now unraveling in her absence. He tells himself she's cold, detached, perhaps even cruel. But deep down, his frustration is a shield against a more terrifying realization. Her silence stirs a hunger in him not for her body, but for his own wholeness. This is why emotional distance can feel so potent, so dangerous, so intoxicating. Because it disrupts the pattern. It denies the ego its usual dance of seduction and validation. It introduces a foreign concept into the dynamic, self-responsibility. And most men are not ready for it. But understand this, it is not about manipulation. True feminine emotional distance does not arise from strategy. It is not an act, but an embodiment. It is the natural state of a woman who has reclaimed her sovereignty. She does not chase because she knows she is already whole. She does not cling because she does not see scarcity where love is concerned. And she does not fear loss because she knows her worth is not defined by his presence or his absence. This woman lives at the edge of his psyche, both feared and desired. She is the anima in its most evolved form, the one he must integrate to move beyond his compulsions, to step into his own mature masculinity. But until then, he will oscillate between longing for her and resenting her, caught in the paradox she presents, intimacy without possession, connection without control. It is here, in this space between desire and detachment, that his transformation, or his undoing, begins. For some men, the discomfort will be too great. They will label her as emotionally unavailable, too independent, too much. But for the rare few, her distance will be the key that unlocks a door long sealed inside themselves. And for her? She does not wait to see which man he will be. She remains unmoved, not from coldness but from clarity. She is not here to heal him, to fix him, to be the balm for wounds he refuses to tend. Her distance is not a weapon, it is a boundary. It is her declaration that her energy, her heart, her love are sacred, and only those who approach with the same reverence may enter. There is a reason men speak of her long after she has gone. Not because of the things she did for them, nor because of the sacrifices she made, but because of the space she left unfilled. That space becomes an echo chamber for their own inadequacies, a haunting reminder of a connection they could never quite control or consume. You see, the allure of emotional distance lies in its power to activate a man's shadow. Carl Jung described the shadow as the unacknowledged, rejected parts of ourselves, everything the ego refuses to see. When a woman maintains her emotional sovereignty, she inadvertently shines light on that shadow. He begins to confront his own fears of rejection, his unmet need for validation, his fragile sense of control. For the man who has built his identity on conquest and affirmation, this confrontation is unbearable. He tells himself she is indifferent, that she doesn't care, that she must be punished with silence of his own. But even as he withdraws, her presence lingers like a phantom. It is not her body he desires, it is the relief he thinks she can provide from the restlessness now stirring within him. The feminine energy she carries is not loud or flamboyant. It is subtle, magnetic, unyielding. It draws him in not with force, but with absence. It invites him not to possess her, but to meet himself. And therein lies the paradox that men fear. To approach her fully, they must first approach themselves. In a culture where women are taught to soothe, to please, to give until empty, her refusal to perform emotional labor becomes radical. It is not a tactic. It is not revenge. It is the result of her own shadow work, of confronting the parts of herself that once sought love through overgiving and proving. She no longer fears the loss of a man's affection because she has stopped bargaining with her own worth. This is what makes her dangerous, not in a destructive sense, but in a way that threatens fragile egos. She does not beg, plead, or attempt to win a man over. Her energy is no longer accessible for those who approach her from a place of lack. She is no longer the girl who explains herself into exhaustion, who twists into shapes to keep someone interested. She is the woman who will quietly walk away when the energy becomes misaligned, trusting that her absence speaks louder than her words ever could. And you who are listening, can feel the truth of this, can't you? You've been the one who stayed too long, gave too much, explained too often. You've seen how the more you poured, the less he cherished. But imagine now the opposite, the power of holding your energy, of no longer fearing his silence because you are anchored in your own. Imagine the freedom of no longer chasing a man's validation, no longer defining your worth by his presence. Emotional distance is not a game. It is not about punishing or manipulating. It is about stepping into a frequency where only those who are truly ready can meet you. It is about embodying a level of self-respect so unshakable that others either rise to match it or fall away. For the man, this is his initiation. He will either recognize the rare opportunity she presents, a chance to integrate his anima, to move beyond his need to dominate and control, or he will recoil in fear and project his wounds back onto her. But this is no longer her burden to bear. She does not demand transformation. She simply exists as a mirror. And those who cannot stand to see themselves reflected will mistake her clarity for cruelty. They will call her heartless, cold, distant. But they will never forget her. Because the truth is this, a woman anchored in her deep feminine energy does not just stir desire. She stirs the soul. And for the man unprepared to meet his own depths, that is the most dangerous allure of all. In the quiet of her presence, he begins to notice a discomfort he cannot name. It creeps in during the silences between her replies, and the space between their last meeting and her absence now. It is not that she has pulled away, it is that she has never fully leaned in, not in the way his ego demands. She does not cling. She does not perform emotional gymnastics to reassure him. And this unsettles him more than any loud argument ever could. For years, he has mistaken a woman's giving for love. He has equated her overinvestment with validation of his worth. But here she is, radiant and sovereign, not demanding, not chasing, not even explaining. It is her restraint, her stillness, that makes him restless. Jung spoke of the anima as the feminine archetype within a man's unconscious, an inner guide to his own soul. But most men do not approach their anima with reverence. They project it onto women, hoping they can possess externally what they have yet to integrate internally. When they meet a woman who does not allow that projection, when she stands apart, unmoved, they feel betrayed by the very energy they seek. You see, there is a violent beauty in emotional distance. It does not wound with swords, but with mirrors. It forces a man to see not her rejection, but his own fragility reflected back at him. The more he craves her, the more he wrestles with his inner void. This is why some men grow angry, calling her cold or emotionally unavailable, as if her calm detachment is a weapon aimed at them. But it isn't. It is simply the natural state of a woman who has stopped leaking her energy into relationships that cannot hold it. And isn't that the deeper truth? That a woman's emotional availability was never meant to be a salve for an unprepared man's wounds. She was never designed to be the container for his unprocessed pain, the antidote to his insecurities. She is her own vessel, full yet never overflowing into places where she is not met with depth. He feels it in his chest, the pull to unravel her mystery, to claim her as a conquest, to win where others have failed. But she remains elusive, not because she is playing hard to get, but because she is not playing at all. She has no need to perform, no compulsion to be chosen. Her energy says, "You may approach, but only as an equal. I will not descend to meet you." This is where most men falter. Their egos, accustomed to women overextending, cannot comprehend the archetype she embodies. To them, her boundaries feel like rejection, her silence like punishment. But to the man ready for transformation, she is the key that unlocks the door to his individuation, the process Jung described as becoming whole. You might wonder what it would feel like to embody this level of feminine power. To stop explaining, justifying, and proving. To let your presence alone be enough. To watch as those incapable of depth fade away, while those meant for you rise to meet the standard your energy sets. This is not about cruelty. It is about clarity. When you hold your emotional distance, you give a man the gift of choice, to rise or to retreat. You cease being the caretaker of his feelings and instead become the guardian of your own. And though some will call it dangerous, there is nothing more liberating than the woman who no longer fears the loss of someone incapable of holding her fully. Her emotional distance is not the absence of love, it is the presence of self-love so complete that it leaves no room for entanglement with those unwilling to meet her in the depths. There comes a point when her emotional distance ceases to be a mystery and begins to take on the shape of a quiet revolution. She has dismantled the stories she once believed about love, stories that told her she must be everything for a man, stories that celebrated sacrifice and self-abandonment as proof of devotion. No longer. The woman he cannot possess is not bitter, nor is she playing at aloofness. She has simply burned away every illusion that once kept her small. To the man watching her slip like smoke through his grasp, it feels like punishment. But what he doesn't yet understand is that her refusal to collapse into his orbit is the greatest gift she could offer. It is an invitation, though few recognize it, to step beyond the infantile need for possession and into the realm of conscious union. Carl Jung warned that projections, when left unexamined, distort relationships. A man who chases a woman not for who she is, but for how she makes him feel about himself, is not in love. He is ensnared in the mirage of his own unmet needs. And when she, standing sovereign in her feminine power, refuses to absorb and soothe those needs, the illusion cracks. But it is not her responsibility to gather his fragments. She is not the healer of his boyhood wounds, not the mother he secretly seeks to reclaim. Her distance draws a line between her wholeness and his longing. She will not be consumed. This is her archetype, the wise feminine, the lover who cannot be owned, the mirror of a man's incompletion. She offers not softness on demand, but the sacred challenge of self-confrontation. And for the man unready to evolve, she is unbearable. You can see him now, can't you? The restless scrolling through her social media. The half-written messages he deletes in prideful defiance. The moments when he declares to his friends that she was never really into him anyway, even as her image flickers in his mind at 2 a.m. He is haunted, not by her presence, but by the void her absence amplifies. For the woman who embodies this energy, there is no need to correct his misconceptions. She knows that a man who misinterprets her boundaries as cruelty was never ready for what she offers. Her role is not to explain, not to defend, but to remain anchored in her own sacred stillness. And you, if you are ready to step into this archetype, must understand that this power is not about withholding to manipulate. It is not about making him chase. It is about reclaiming all the energy you once scattered in pursuit of love and letting it flow inward, nourishing you first. From this place, you no longer feel compelled to overgive or overinvest. You do not fear being too much or not enough. You are simply yourself, and that is terrifyingly magnetic. This is the dangerous allure of emotional distance. Not because it hurts him, but because it exposes him. It forces him to confront whether his desire for you is rooted in genuine love or in his inability to sit with his own emptiness. And if he does the work, if he begins to integrate his shadow and step into the mature masculine, he will no longer see your distance as rejection. He will see it as the space where true love, uncontaminated by ego, can finally take root. But if he cannot rise to meet you, let him fall away. You are not here to be the balm for a man's unresolved wounds. You are not here to be chosen. You are here to choose. It is in this quiet choosing that her true power crystallizes. For so long, the narrative of love told her she must be the giver, the one who softens, who bends, who sacrifices until there is nothing left but a hollow echo of herself. But now, she is the woman who keeps her softness sacred, who does not offer it as payment for affection, who no longer mistakes overextension for intimacy. He notices the difference, though he cannot articulate it. In her presence, he feels both drawn and disoriented. She does not conform to the blueprint of women he has known. She does not seek to fix or soothe. She does not flood him with reassurance. And yet, she is not cold. She is warm in the way a hearth burns, steady, self-contained, untouchable unless invited. To Jung, this is the anima in her fullest expression, the deep feminine that does not collapse into dependency nor weaponize her independence. She is balanced, anchored, whole. For a man unaccustomed to meeting such energy, she is dangerous, not because she harms, but because she refuses to participate in the dance of ego validation. You've seen it, haven't you? The man who grows louder, more persistent, more desperate as she grows quieter. His attempts to provoke her into reaction, his longing for even a shred of her attention, all betray one truth: he has not yet met himself fully. Her silence forces him to sit with the parts of himself he would rather escape. And for her, this is no longer her concern. She is not here to be the object of obsession. She is not here to be anyone's catalyst or muse. Her energy is sovereign, flowing inward like a river reclaiming its source. She no longer feels compelled to chase love because she understands that love born of fear, fear of loss, fear of being alone, is not love at all. Imagine this in your own life. Imagine holding yourself with such unwavering reverence that you no longer seek validation in his texts, his calls, his promises. Imagine a stillness so complete that his inconsistency no longer stirs anxiety but gratitude, for it shows you who is aligned with your energy and who is not. This is the beauty of emotional distance. It is not a wall to keep others out, it is a sanctuary where only the worthy may enter. And for the few men who can sit with their shadows, who can face the anima within without seeking to dominate it, she will open her door. But even then, she will not pour herself recklessly. She gives from overflow, not from emptiness. The others, those who cannot meet her depth, will fade into their own noise, mistaking her calm for cruelty, her boundaries for rejection. But in truth, they were never prepared to receive her. This is not arrogance. It is alignment. The woman who embodies emotional distance does not wait to be chosen. She does not beg for space in a man's life. She knows that any connection built on chasing, pleading, or performing will only drain her. So she withdraws, not as punishment, but as preservation. To some, her way of loving may seem dangerous. But to those who understand, it is the only way to truly love, without losing oneself. She is no longer the woman who fears solitude. She has befriended it, made it her ally. And in doing so, she has become the rarest of all things in this world, a woman who is free. Now the shift is complete. What once felt like a dangerous allure to him has become, for her, a natural state of being. She is no longer the girl who anxiously waits for his validation, no longer the woman who fills silence with words meant to hold his attention. She has walked through the fire of her own shadow work, through the fear of abandonment, the ache of unreciprocated love, the exhaustion of overgiving, and emerged whole. He may still think of her in moments of quiet. The memory of her emotional distance stings not because she was cruel, but because it was a mirror. A mirror to his own inability to give without expectation, to love without control. She reflected his wounds, not by pointing them out, but by refusing to absorb them. Carl Jung taught that wholeness comes from the integration of opposites, light and dark, masculine and feminine, conscious and unconscious. For a man, this means facing his anima not as a prize to be claimed but as a guide to his own depths. Yet most men resist this journey. They prefer the comfort of a woman who gives endlessly, who fills the silence with reassurances, who mends every crack in their self-worth. But the woman who has mastered emotional distance is no longer that woman. She does not volunteer to be the balm for wounds she did not cause. She does not step into the role of savior or mother. Instead, she chooses presence over performance, detachment over desperation, truth over transaction. You, listening now, may feel the power of this choice stirring within you. Perhaps you have tasted the exhaustion of trying to be everything to someone who gave you so little in return. Perhaps you felt the sting of realizing your overgiving was never enough to make him stay, to make him love you the way you loved him. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine holding your energy close, like a sacred flame. Imagine no longer bending to make space for someone unwilling to meet you where you stand. Imagine how magnetic you would become, not because you withhold to entice, but because your wholeness leaves no room for the half-hearted. To the world, your emotional distance may seem dangerous. It will be misunderstood as coldness, as arrogance, as playing hard to get. But you know the truth, it is not a game. It is the natural byproduct of becoming a woman who refuses to lose herself for love. And for the man prepared to meet you, this distance will not repel. It will attract. Because he will recognize it for what it is, not rejection, but an invitation. An invitation to rise to your level, to meet you as an equal, to bring his own fullness to the table rather than feeding on yours. This is the paradox of feminine power. The less you need him, the more he is drawn to you, not because of a strategy, but because your energy communicates a rare and undeniable truth: you are complete within yourself. And when you live from this truth, you will no longer chase love. You will no longer settle for scraps of attention disguised as affection. You will no longer feel the need to prove your worth to a man too blind to see it. Because the woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.